my name is Rich Harrington, and welcome to this edition of Understanding Adobe Photoshop. Today, we're going to tackle one of the least used features of Photoshop, and that is blending modes. A blending mode takes two layers and combines them together based upon the contents of the layer. Some modes use color, some use luminance, some use combinations of different values. And what happens is you get a mixing of the layers far different than just changing opacity. Now, this gets a little tricky, and you might be saying, why would I use this? Well, blending modes are that little secret that most people don't talk about. They open up all sorts of options as you're working, and some of them are technical, some of them are design. Here's how it works. I've got several different images open here, and I'm just going to show you a few things. On the top here, we have a layer, and notice up top there are different modes. So as we step through, we get different results. Here, the top layer is darkening the bottom layer, much like a magic marker stroke on top. And as we get into our next category, we're getting into lightening effects. And you see they change. Or overlay effects that combine the different images together with different options. Now, a quick way to change blending modes is to select the Move tool, and you can use Shift plus or Shift minus to step through the list. And that's much more intuitive than constantly going over clicking, drag, pick, click, drag, pick. Just using that shortcut will really speed up your designing and will make it much more intuitive as you experiment. Because that's the case. Blending modes are an experiment. No two modes work the same, and it's going to depend upon the task at hand. Now, you'll discover certain things like screen mode is really useful to drop out the dark areas, or multiply to drop out the bright areas, and hue and color are useful to tint an image. But beyond that, the rest are really experimental, and you're going to discover that you have your own favorites and approaches for different situations. I'm going to close this here and go on to a real-world collage, and we have different layers combining. It's just a series of nighttime photos here, purposely shot late at night. And as I step through here, you'll see that we're using different blend modes. So here I'm using the Add mode, and it's taking the brighter values of the layer above and adding them down below. Next, we have another layer. Here it is normally, and I've placed it into Screen mode, which drops out the darker colors, creating a nice combination. And as we step through here, you see Lighten and Linear Dodge, and we've just combined, basically painting with the light to make an artistic collage here from a series of nighttime photos. That works great, and as a design tool or experimental tool, you can get a lot done with blending modes. But it can also be a very straightforward tool to serve some technical tasks as well. Here we have a very dark photo. And if I duplicate the layer and place it into Screen or Lighten mode, you'll notice that it starts to add up. Screen in this case works best. I'll duplicate the layer again by pressing Command J or Control J to jump another copy. And notice how the brightness values add up. So we go from a very dark image to a much easier to see image by using the Screen mode. And while you can do things like levels and other adjustments, I often find as a color correction tool this is useful. For example here, notice if we just put a levels adjustment on here and start to pull that up, it works as well, but how grainy and noisy it gets. Contrast that with using multiple copies in Screen mode, and you see that only the darkest parts of the image are getting brighter, while the brightest parts are pretty much being left alone. And when satisfied, I could just shift-click to select those layers, right-click and say Convert to Smart Object, and there it is, as a single layer, easy to work with within my multi-layered document. So that's a very straightforward technical use, and you'll discover lots others as well when you work with modes. And of course, as a design component, it works great. Here we have a rubber stamp. I'm just going to copy that and switch over, paste it in here, and try to put this on the side of a box. Now, looking at that, it doesn't look believable. But if we press Command-T for free transform or Control-T on a PC, we can go ahead and actually start to distort this. And by distorting it, I'm going to map the corners to the edge of the box, just dragging each independently. And I'm getting the angle right for the surface here. There we go. Now it looks like it's matching the side of the box. Right-click and choose Scale. And I'll just hold down the Option and Shift keys as I drag towards the middle. And we'll put that down there on the side of the box. Looks good. But unfortunately, still looks like it's just a graphic sitting on top of a photo. until we pick the Move tool and start pressing Shift plus, and you'll notice that it actually starts to blend in, picking up the wood texture and actually looking like it's on the side of the box. And different modes will give you very different results, but notice how the darkness of the wood shows through. And I think I liked some of these early ones on here, like Color Burn, and we'll lower that to 80%. And now, to me, that much more looks like it's actually printed on the side of the box because the wood texture shows through the top layer. And there's blending modes in action. There's so much more to blending modes. They're going to come up at all sorts of time, designing, and we've already seen them in other lessons of understanding Adobe Photoshop. Make sure you put these into your arsenal. They are the least used, most powerful feature of Photoshop, and they can really get the job done. For Understanding Adobe Photoshop, my name's Rich Harrington.